So Scott is getting ready, setting up the model.
5:57, 3 more minutes.
All right, big deal. Cool. So I'll just start talking, I guess. I'm gonna set my alarm. Yeah, I'm gonna get some colors down there. I'm not really thinking about really mixing exactly any kind of exact colors. Maybe I'll go a little bit. And so we'll just start blocking in some things here for the face. I'm going to just try to start blocking in the whole, kind of the, kind of squinting at her and thinking about what my design might want to be. And then we'll just start playing around with some of these values and colors. But nothing too detailed at this point. It's just getting something down there that might be notes to try to cover the canvas. And all this stuff, it doesn't really matter at this point what the colors are exactly. As long as the value, you start to feel the value structure a little bit. And then I'll be going over this with other colors to kind of mix them on the canvas. So let's put in some of the hair here and just get some things down that I can work into. So that maybe just start to think about the design here. This is kind of the way I start with the brush too, where I start into this these big value patterns. So I'm thinking about her neck is down here, and this is kind of where the side of the face is. And I like to then put my fingers too to kind of, from my forehead to my chin, and then I kind of hold it up here to try to think about what life size is. So if this is the top of her forehead here, okay, then this is about where, for life size, where her chin will be. That way it keeps you from accidentally, and sometimes you want to make things really large, but in this, most of the time I like to make the portraits more life size if I can, because when you see the painting, you kind of get more of a sense that you're kind of meeting the person, you're talking to them. Now if the person's further back in the scene, like say I had her hands coming forward, and there was some flowers in the foreground or a person sitting in the foreground, then you wouldn't want to have them life-size because it's going to feel weird that they're far back with perspective, but then their life-size, it will make them look too big. So usually you're going to only have the life-size, like when I do large paintings, when I do the really large ones for the Prix de West, like 6 foot by 8, talking about, like I was thinking about, use some orange and some black. Okay. And then I use a little bit of mineral spirits here so I can cover a bigger area. You just get some stuff down here. All right. So to me, the abstract pattern and design is the most important thing. Sometimes that I start with that, and then other times that comes later. If I'm starting out something that is really complicated with a lot of figures in it, say, then I'll draw it out in charcoal, because sometimes it will take me 3 days just to draw out something with 20 people in it. And so now, and it's so important to get all the relationships between the sizes of the different people or the landscape right. So I'll sketch it all out. But then once I get it all drawn out, I will, and we have some demos of those, some of those big paintings on Patreon where I've shot it in progress and stuff. Here it's in white, and then I'll look into that, you know, to make it less, you know, saturated. So let's get something down here. I don't necessarily cover everything, so I'm going to start looking into a lot of this stuff and moving it together. So it's kind of just my starting point. A lot of paintings I've been doing lately too, I'm starting completely abstract without even knowing what I'm going to paint on it. We're putting some of those on Patreon, and then when I get something interesting, then I will look into it and think about what do I want to put on top of that. Sometimes I'll see a figure or a face in it, and then I always like to have that realistic element mixed with an abstract element. I've done all this drawing and stuff so I can have fun with it without worrying about, oh, I spend all the time on the eye and everything, you know, so I don't want to mess it up, you know. So this is kind of a good time in the beginning. And I didn't used to do it with these, but I'll do it with this, I'll do it with a palette knife, I'll do it with a brush, I'll do it with a brayer, I'll do it with whatever, or paper towels. That's how I used to do a lot of this sort of thing. Or like Richard Schmid would do this kind of thing with a brush, and he'd rub it with his paper towels. You see how you're starting to get a little bit more interesting intermixing of things. So I don't like to have, I like every inch of the painting, and the finish, to look interesting. Not just to be big flat areas of just one color on the background or one value. So, and I want these colors here, these areas that are blue, red, yellow, I want to have a little bit of those colors mixing through the whole thing. Okay, so that these areas will still look like this is the blue area, but and it'll still have some, I have to be careful on this, so, you know, and I honestly don't get nervous. I never got nervous at demos, even though I do demos that I think they're a good lesson, and then I'll wipe them off afterwards. You know, I think it's a lesson, but I really have no idea what's going to come out. Some come out great, some are disasters, but that's just like every painting, you know. And for some reason, I just don't seem to care that people see me make huge mistakes, you know. And I always start them with so much excitement, and I really feel like they're going to come out great. And then at some point, usually, it's like, okay, this is not going to come out as good as I hoped. But, you know, use the middle range of the values. So not going to go too light yet for the highlights, and I won't go too dark in my shadows. As I come down to the neck, as I squint at her, everything that comes below this point, it's a little darker. So I've got these lights here. So I'm going to just go a little bit darker. A little bit darker, cooler as we come down here. And then as it goes to the neck, I'm going to go even darker. So, you know, the bow is actually a good idea. You know, you only want to go as fast as you can with accuracy. This particular, if you saw me painting at home, I might be starting out like this, but then at some point I slow down and I'm trying to leave this stuff alone and just make little changes, and then it really slows down. So this block-in stage, you don't want to get stuck in the block-in stage where you start to paint too many small things. You want to keep it in these large patterns. I'm trying to get this base down that I can, but I want paint to work into. So I want to work brush stroke into brush stroke where I'm blending and moving it, and that's how you get that creaminess sense. And I mean, when I used to do workshops, everybody was always asking, I would say, what are you here to learn? And so many people would say, I'm here to learn how to paint thick. And so I'll say, okay, that's the easiest thing for me to teach you. But I'll look at their palette then, and they put out little dots of paint. I'm like, this is literally not one brush stroke for me. There's all this paint you put out. And so the thing is you have to do, when you do those sorts of things, you have to have enough paint. You have to do it in one stroke. If you keep doing this and this and this and this, you know, but a lot of times this and this and this is what I want. So I'm working into it. So I'm saying, oh, I want to get a little bit of red into this, and so I'll do that, and I'll just work it in there. And so you can see here now how we're starting to get the structure of the shadow and the light, okay, without getting into any detail. So it's the biggest shape first, the whole head, the background, these things, and then it's the medium shapes that I'm trying to mold, like say, go a little darker down here. I'm not like feeling rushed. I'm not thinking, I've got to hurry. It's just big shapes, and so it's big, simpler shapes, and so it goes quicker. But then the other stages will be where it'll slow down and start getting very precise. I want you to see in your mind, think: is the shadow side of her face, is it closer to this darkest dark here, or is it closer to the light? And then, so in your mind, you're thinking 10 value, your darkest dark, and white value. I don't even have the white on here, so maybe her highlight is still like a 2. So I'm thinking in my mind, where in the scale does that fit? And I'm looking at my palette. So when I mixed up the shadow value for her face, I had looked up there and I had squinted at the darkest dark, the light of her face, and I thought, where does this fit? Is it closer to this? So this value, the difference between here and here, that's what I see when I squint and keep my eye moving up there. And I keep my eye moving and comparing it to the light and the shadow. Because when I open my eyes and I'm right in the shadow, I'm just comparing it to the dark here, and it will look much lighter. When I move my eyes back and forth, and so on my palette, I've got my darkest dark, lightest light, and I mix it a little bit more with these other tools, and make sure I have some interesting abstract things going on. And so I kind of questioning to myself, I was about to start going through the eyes, and I was like, I need to work a little bit more of this other stuff first. Make sure that I've got these values dark enough, and then I can also work into them with a palette knife or with some of these rubber things and make sure I've got some interesting stuff going that I'm not going to be too worried about messing up with. It's the same colors, and he made color charts and all that stuff, which we were supposed to, whichever did school except for me, I didn't do color charts. But it works for him. And so he would say, how do you know? Because he has his color charts. He'd be like, so he would know, oh, I mix this with this to get this particular color they wanted. And so it was like a piano that he could play. He's like, you don't know what this gray is, you know? I'm like, it doesn't matter to me. It's, you know, I'll just look up there, and if I need to add a little red to it or yellow to it or whatever. That's how I make some interesting to lose some of these edges, because see how it becomes very academic-like. And so I can go back over this and make outlines or whatever I want, and then I'll go back and forth and lose things as I do the paintings later. There's lots of paintings that I like to do that with, playing around with things. And it's more fun, and so I'll go back over it, I'll paint it, I'll repaint it more abstractly, and so it's kind of fun. All right, so now we're going to start working into this here. Now I'm going to start to try to put in some of the medium-sized shapes of her eye. Those. Right. Go ahead and look at me for a couple of seconds here. I'm going to start putting your eye in here. You're doing wonderful. Mm-hmm. Have you posed a lot for people?
Not really, no.
You're more excited about being on the other side of the...
Yeah.
Yeah, so fun. So you see how I'm not trying to draw the anatomy of the eye or this stuff. I'm squinting a little bit, and I'm looking at the larger shape. And it's just like a little, when I say shape, I'm talking about this whole area, like if you were like posterized or something, or this puzzle piece kind of thing. So that's all when I squint. And when I say squint, I mean just slightly lower your eyelashes over your eyes. Not like that's good for that, and then maybe I'll use a bigger one for those bigger shapes. And then I have these small little ones with the brush. I'll try
like a liner brush.
Whatever, and then I'll use it up. My brushes I don't wash them, so I'll wash them in the turpentine, but they'll go bad. And I like them when they get bad and they get worn down, because I'll scrub with them. And then when I kind of run out of it, I'll just grab other brushes, and so I'll just use a different brush. But, so this is kind of fun. So I'm just trying now. So you see how I'm starting, I haven't put in any anatomy, I'm just these shapes, trying to get these shapes right, and in the right place in the value, and it starts to look like, at first, the face turning, and then the eye. It's not about the details, but I'm squinting to make sure I don't get the white of the eye too white, because you'll stare in there and you'll think the white of the eye is really white. So yeah, so you just use the top in the same way. This, There's so many and my teacher would say, if you can't see it, don't paint it. Don't try to see more, And it took me a while to get used to that, let this stuff just go into the shadow. It's in the shadow. And if you don't see it when you squint, don't paint it. If you don't see the edge, let it be a lost edge. And so our teacher would tell us, edges are the same as values. You look and you squint, you compare them with your around and say, what's the sharpest edge in your subject? And then what's the softest edge? What's an edge that completely just goes away when you're squinting at it? You don't even see the edge because the values are so close. Like as it comes up the ear here, these all edges get completely lost. You don't see the side of the ear go up. So now you see how it gets a lot less exciting to watch, because I'm just trying to leave that stuff alone. I'm just trying to slightly change and refine some of these things to get I've got the abstract excitement, and now I'm trying to get the realism that's going to give you the emotion of the subject. So the abstract is exciting just on the colors and the design, but for me, I love starting things and just doing things abstract, but I cannot, like Kwang was looking at, I had sent him something, Kwang Ho, that I had done, and he's like, just stop there, that's so cool, just as an abstract. I'm like, no, it's just not enough for me, I've got to have some emotion to it. So I added a face into it, and I said that to him. He goes, oh my God, I love it more now. And it's funny, but to me, the realism gives me the emotional connection to a subject as well as that abstract. But I have to have both, to feel that it's been a successful painting. So here I keep squinting and trying to get this right, and it's amazing how this whole area goes a little darker into the shadow, into the kind of shadow area there with her eye. And you can see there's this harder edge here where the light hits the shadow, and I really have to squint because my tendency is to want to open my eyes and make this too light in here and see how that edge is sharp. So that's telling me a sharp edge like that, that's a clue that you've got a big value change, because that's what a sharp edge is a big value change between things.
Are you enjoying the
nuance?
Yes,
The lighting and
good.
everything will just
I wish I could just see the
So you're using all your paints.
Oh, I see.
I know. I use like a fourth of this paint.
I wish I could just scratch that.
And company long filbert. So you see how it's kind of rounded out? It's kind of a rounder thing. And so this I will soften certain areas in areas where I want it to be softened. And then I'll go back in and find some harder edges and things. So it's this back and forth of getting things too hard, too soft, trying to find that balance. I'll soften, then I'll come back in. Usually I'll wait till the next day. So the paint, when I work this thick paint, it's set up a little bit. It's a little stiffer. You can still work into it, but it's stiffer. So when I do this, it won't go down to the canvas as much. It won't pick up as much. But I'm going to do it on this one as well. I'll do it when I'm doing these quick paints like this. So I'm just going to go through because she is very soft. It's like when you put some of these brush strokes down and stuff like that, I'm trying to get the values right. And things like this, you see how the edge is too abrupt of a transition here. These sorts of things. Even around these things here. So what I do, even here, like this creates hard edges because they're little brush strokes, okay? So as much as I can, I work things into each other, but inevitably things are too hard too when you're working thick. So I'll just go in and I'll just do this. I'll just kind of dab in here with the dry part of it. And then when it gets too much paint on here, I'll just wash it off. I'll really dry it thoroughly. And then I'll go into things again, okay? So I'll go to I try to do it just a little bit so that I still see some of the brushwork and stuff. So I'm squinting at her and thinking, where do I need to soften edges? Now usually I will soften it a little too much and then I'll come back in maybe the next day or when it's dry and I'll put in, you see that in a lot of Sargent paints where you can see he softened things, he thoroughly let it dry over a couple days, and then I'll put in some really like graphic darks or strokes, but they go right over, you can see them in Zorn too, did that a lot. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. So, I'm sure I won't finish this painting, but I want to show you these techniques. So as it comes up here, it gets a little softer too. And so that's pretty much, I always pretty much go through this stage because it's just painting thick, that's what happens, And as I get up here, I might just use some lighter paint to get some of this lighter areas here. And I might just quick it down and then dab it a little bit. So I'm kind of working that softness now. Now sometimes I'll put paint on it and go over an area and dab over it. Usually when it's dry, I'll do that. If I need to slightly soften an area, I'll mix up a value in between two things and I'll just slightly dab it on there so you can still see the brushwork, okay? So this is kind of just, and I might just slightly do this. This is a great thing to do when it's set up a bit. You can knock down if you're getting glare. Like some of these thick strokes here in the shadow, but usually I always will wait. I'll either use a brush like this or one of these brushes here. So in the shadow areas here where you have thick strokes that are going to get too much glare, I'll just take this and I'll just very slightly go over the edge, like this. This is something that I learned from Richard Schmidt. He would do this all the time to get rid of glare strokes and stuff. Even though he didn't paint as thick, it would, and then, once you get these main things in, that's time where you go back to now, like how we started, playing around a little bit. you know, getting this abstract element. This stuff over here is meant to be more lost and found, so you can play. So there's certain areas that you want to be really precise, and then those can get balanced by areas that are going to be more lost and abstract and interesting. That's where you can play around with your brush and palette knife, and it's so fun to do that. But see, to me, that's always been my philosophy, and I'm trying to keep pushing myself to get more and more in that direction, where the abstract, if you have part of your picture abstract and it's part of it very realistic, the abstract areas will make the realistic areas look more realistic. It's like counterpoint in music, you know, the soft areas make the symbols even more startling. And then it's the same with some of the paintings I've been doing, like that I have things that are two-dimensional or outlined. Like I did the painting with the sunflowers with Maya and for the porch society, and so the sunflowers are two-dimensional. I don't have any shadows in them. They're just flat patterns, like Klimt or Muko would do. And then those two-dimensional areas and then one-dimensional with outlines, they make the three-dimensional areas look more three-dimensional in contrast. So that's the completely repainted them in a whole different style. And sometimes Sue's a little upset. She's like, "Why did you do that?" And I put some in the New York show last year that I had, and I wasn't sure if people like them, and different people like different things, because some people say, "Well, the light, this will usually get a little bit grayer, a little bit greener on just about everybody." So on men more so, because they'll have like a beard shadow.
Greens down there will look like they have a 5 o'clock shadow.
It's
very subtle.
You definitely need a balance of greens with the warmth. It's surprising how much green there is in faces a lot of times, but it just depends on the person. Really.
Oh yeah, it does. Looks great. Soft young with that.
Yeah, I got to make sure that these in the shadow aren't too
Synthetic
graphic.
mongoose, probably. Yeah.
I don't know what this is.
Looks
I
like
think those are
mongoose.
those.
This is rosemary long
Master's
filbert.
choice.
So
Filbert is
I don't
probably
think. I think it's like an imitation mongoose.
Yes, the synthetic mongoose. Yeah, exactly. I actually like those.
Oh, I like them.
I like them a lot.
I really like these. I'll look at this.
So this is the room that Janice serves breakfast in for the people who stay. Isn't this lovely? Yay! We sit here like we're in a little French cafe.
So Hamza, you mostly paint people.
Oh my God, you made us sort of like a frittata? Or what is that?
It's a quiche without the pie crust. It's
Perfect.
a little healthier than pie crust.
I love this. Oh, I can't wait to use that mug. Oh my God, look how cute that is. I found my stevia. So look at you, look way too good. I'm totally like, I just want to be in bed all day. Oh, this is
cereal here if you guys want to
okay, great. Yay, we get to meet one of our students, which is wonderful. Yay.
and fruit here.
This was the demo that Scott did last night. Oh my gosh, it's so expressive and very, very thick. This is Janice's room. She does a lot of, still life as teachers come. I wanted to show you guys this. This is an early Nancy. Janice and Nancy used to go to Old Lyme Academy together, and I was like, oh my gosh, I recognize that. And we started our demos. I talked for literally an hour before even starting to paint. So it's a block in, trying to teach people to be really, really slow. Let's see if I can. Yeah.
keeping no detail. So Scott painted it and then destroyed it. But he's, you know, he's being artsy. We have a beautiful model, Lourdes. She teaches here and is also an artist. And this leads out until her front porch. Yeah, wonderful class. So they're going out to lunch right now, and then we're going to set up the model. 2 models.
Okay, so you keep it the same.
You keep it perpendicular to your eyes as you go down. So yeah, and make sure to keep your arms straight, because that's the biggest problem. Is a lot of times people they'll have it like this, and so as they go down, it might go back and forth, and that'll significantly change your movement.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
No problem. Yeah, it's a good question. Oh yeah. Keep working. Too long.
So that you get a good close-up.
Oh sure.
Yeah, that's cool. Looks just like her.
Cool.
I love that little squiggle off. It looks like she's been electrocuted.
Her hair. She has the little hairs that were flying away. I wasn't sure
Oh,
how
yeah?
to do them, so they're so subtle. I can always.
It's day 2 of our workshop, and Scott was able to paint all day yesterday, so he started off very, very, very abstract, and now he kind of worked. Oh, video wants to play games with paintings. You know, it's definitely not as contrasty in person, but we'll get better photos. So he's playing around with the tools and playing around with abstraction, and trying not to be super literal, you know, not. So he'll finish it this morning, and I will work on my little piece that I did, which is very, very simple block-in. And then we go to the rodeo. The class is doing great, so it's really fun, and the models are spectacular.
Aquí en la escaramuza juvenil de San Antonio. Presentación hermosa que requiere mucha táctica, mucho dominio del caballo. No más, qué velocidad, qué fuerte. Excelente. We're very proud of these beautiful ladies practicing like every 2 weeks.
We've come back to like look at the girls. They're all doing it side saddle. Some of these girls, especially the little girls that I saw, are like 9 years old. First show. Oh my God, this is so much better than I expected. I mean, come on. I'm so glad the class gets to see this. They're posing for photos. It's kind of fun to be able to see a crowd come and be really appreciative and just tell them how wonderful they are.
Whoa, horse. Look out, horse. De México, San Luis Potosí. Giddy up. El Salvador, vamos. Bueno, aquí presentando el desfile de nuestras caramuzas, las tejanitas de la procesión de Charros de San Antonio. Y aquí nuestro compañero. First of all, I'd like to apologize. I wish I had a bigger arena.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to.
But I don't.
I can't take it.
And a princess night. The fuerte twitch that they have. Sliding stop. Some of the charros have sliding stops in excess of 15 yards.
¿Va a tirar el rocío?
Allá observo a nuestra compañera Roma del canal 12 por ahí que nos estuvo entrevistando hace unos días. Aquí andamos enfrente. Un saludo, muchas gracias por la entrevista el otro día, muy contento. Gracias. Y un orgullo tenerlos a todos ustedes aquí. Yo voy a proud of you guys out here. Representing our community and thank you, San Antonio.
Where's Scott? He's over there. He's been walking around. Oh, I see. This is so fun.
So this is the younger team of the blue team over there.
Oh, that's
Oh, is that a different video?
Hey guys! Christy said we have to go! Go!
Together. So then you're dealing with that. If you're not confident about getting your values dark enough, if you're not confident about painting thick enough, this is a good approach. So you see how now I'm literally kind of just painting up to shapes. This is an approach for people who really are still trying to figure out drawing and painting at the same time. And I just want you to see how I keep my brush down and I just scumble. It's pretty thin, so that's all right.
And those are your lightest lights?
Yeah, I'm actually doing my whole light shape of the whole face. I'm trying to just fill it in. So this is a filling in method. If you have to paint really fast or small like I did yesterday, I wouldn't use this approach. I would not paint up to my tiny little eyes. This is something if you're painting a little bit bigger and you need to work on drawing. The brushwork isn't going to be as exciting, right? Because I'm painting up to things. But you'll be a little bit more accurate. It'll be a little bit safer. And it's, you know, it can be just as... I have to be careful. This eye, it looks, you know, like this lid up here is light, but I still have to be careful that it's not as light as her cheek. I have to be constantly telling myself that nothing in this shape is as light as in the cheek, you know, the lighter parts of the face. So I have to constantly make sure I keep it pushed back. Hint at it. So where is the height? Where's the... Remember, I'm just guessing. So it has to be so much darker. That even looks too light to me. Where's the bottom? Has to be so much darker than, it has to stay within this shape so that people don't look there automatically, and it has to be softer edges. We are at the San Antonio airport. Oh my God, look at this. They have a free library for kids and teenagers. Now that is sweet. I love this airport. Oh my God, it literally took like 10 minutes to get here.
Attention to the terminal. American Airlines is paging Phoenix passenger Ryan Haynes.
I'm videoing saying how much we like the airport.
Oh my God, it's beautiful here.
I know,
So
it's so easy, so fast, so clean. They don't have an American club, but that's okay because literally our gate, we can see the door from where we checked in. So I was saying how it takes 10 minutes to get here from Janice's. So if you guys want to go to San Antonio and do a workshop, super easy. And we're gonna be flying home and seeing our kitties. And Scott are you reading the news?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
All happy news.
Oh, is it always happy news? Okay, everything.
Getting all peaceful and wonderful.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you so much for watching my YouTube videos. I love it when people write me about them, and I have fun doing them, so I'm so glad that people are enjoying them. Please subscribe and follow me and Scott on our Instagram pages, our website, and also on our patreon.com/Susan Lyon.